Hello, friends. November 24th, 1971. In America, a Northwest Orient Airlines flight took off from Portland. This was a short, 30-minute flight to Seattle. Not many passengers were on board, just 36 passengers and 6 crew members. But none of them knew that a hijacker was sitting quietly among them. A man calling himself D.B. Cooper. He looked like an ordinary businessman. Dark suit, white shirt, black tie. Somewhere in his mid-40s. He picked the last row of the plane, seat 18E, and as soon as the aircraft took off, he waved down a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner and handed her a note. Florence, only 23 at the time, assumed he was flirting and slipped the note into her pocket without reading it. Cooper leaned in and told her she'd better read it. The note said he had a bomb in his briefcase and wanted her to sit beside him. When she opened his case, she saw red cylinders, wires, and a large battery. It looked real, and she wasn't taking any chances. Cooper's demands were simple: $200,000 in cash by 5 p.m., 2 parachutes strapped to the front of his body and 2 to the back, and a fuel truck waiting the moment the plane landed. Threaten anything, he warned, and he'd detonate the bomb. Word was passed quietly to the cockpit. A second flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, sat beside Cooper to keep him calm while the crew relayed his demands to air traffic control, and eventually to the airline's president, Donald Nyrop. Nyrop made an unusual call: comply with everything. He didn't want the story of a hijacking splashed across the news and hurting the airline's reputation, so he authorized full cooperation and coordinated with the FBI to get the ransom together. There was just one problem. Arranging $200,000 in cash takes time, and this was supposed to be a 30-minute flight, so the pilots were told to keep circling Seattle. Passengers were informed of minor technical difficulties. Nobody suspected a thing. 3 hours later, the plane finally landed, parked far from the terminal, and an airline representative delivered the cash and parachutes. Cooper let everyone off the plane except Tina Mucklow, the crew, and the pilots. Then came the strangest part of the night. The plane took off again, this time with very specific instructions. Fly toward Mexico City. Stay under 10,000 feet. Wings at 15 degrees. Keep the speed as low as possible. The pilots warned him there wasn't enough fuel to make it that far, but Cooper didn't care. He sent Tina into the cockpit and told her to lock the door. Minutes later, a warning light flashed. The rear staircase of the Boeing 727 had been deployed. Cooper had opened it, strapped on his parachutes and the money, and jumped into the freezing, rain-soaked night sky. At 8:13 p.m., the crew felt the tail of the plane pitch upward and had to re-level it. When they finally landed in Reno, Nevada, and police searched the cabin, D.B. Cooper was gone. All they found were a tie clip, some torn parachute fabric, a few cigarette butts, and 66 unidentified fingerprints. The suitcase, the money, and Cooper himself had vanished. The FBI investigation would run for the next 45 years. 2 things about this case stand out immediately. First, not a single passenger on board ever realized the flight had been hijacked, and nobody was hurt. Much of the credit for that goes to Tina Mucklow, whose calm handling of Cooper kept the situation from spiraling. The co-pilot later said she was remarkably composed, someone he couldn't imagine handling the situation better. Second, the name. Cooper actually introduced himself as Dan Cooper. A reporter on a tight deadline misheard the name from a police source as D.B. Cooper, and once that version hit the papers, it stuck for good. It's a textbook case of what psychologists call anchoring. Our tendency to latch onto the first piece of information we hear, even when it's wrong. As the old saying about misinformation goes, it's always far easier to spread a mistake than to correct one. As for whether Cooper actually survived the jump, the odds looked brutal. He leapt from 10,000 feet into pitch darkness, through freezing rain, wearing nothing but a business suit, at an estimated wind speed of roughly 200 miles per hour. If he'd landed in one of the region's lakes, hypothermia could have set in within minutes. But here's the twist. Cooper's stunt inspired copycats. At least 5 later hijackers tried the same trick: jump with a parachute and vanish. And every single one of them survived the fall, even in worse conditions than Cooper faced. 1. Martin McNally jumped at nearly double Cooper's speed using only a reserve chute and lived. Another, Richard LaPointe, landed safely in the snow in the dead of winter. If they could survive, the FBI reasoned, so could Cooper. Especially since he'd waved off the parachute instructions, telling Tina he already knew how to use them. The ransom itself was traceable. 10,000 individual $20 bills, all with recorded serial numbers, distributed to banks and casinos nationwide. Investigators scoured the forests near Lake Merwin in Washington state, going door to door, running boats across the lakes, even sending a submarine 200 feet down to search the lake bed. Nothing turned up. For 3 years, a $1,000 reward sat unclaimed for anyone who found even a single marked bill. Then, in 1979, a pilot named Tom Bohan came forward. He'd been flying just minutes behind Cooper's plane that night and remembered the storm as one of the worst he'd ever flown through. He told the FBI their estimated drop zone was off by roughly 80 degrees and pointed them toward the Washougal River instead. He was right. Not long after, an 8-year-old boy digging on the banks of the Columbia River found bundles of cash, still held together with rubber bands. The serial numbers matched Cooper's ransom exactly. In total, only $5,800 was ever recovered. FBI agent Richard Tosaw came to believe Cooper had drowned in the river that night. The boy who found the money, meanwhile, later auctioned off part of his share in 2008 for $37,000. If Cooper is gone, who was he in the first place? The one physical clue investigators had was his tie clip. In 2009, a research team examined it under an electron microscope and found traces of unalloyed titanium and titanium antimony alloy, materials tied to aircraft manufacturing at the time. It suggested Cooper may have worked in aeronautical engineering, possibly even for Boeing itself. The FBI built 3 composite sketches over the following years, refining Cooper's likeness each time based on witness feedback. Investigator Larry Carr, who led the case from 2006 to 2009, believed Cooper was likely a former Air Force cargo loader, someone trained in parachute basics and familiar with how aircraft like the 727 operated. More than 800 suspects were eventually compiled, but only about 20 were taken seriously. 2 stand out. Richard McCoy, a Vietnam veteran, pulled off a nearly identical hijacking just 5 months later. Same aircraft type, same ransom style, same rear stairs jump, but was caught within 2 days. His family reportedly recognized Cooper's tie as his, and McCoy himself never confirmed or denied being Cooper. He was killed in a shootout during a prison escape attempt 2 years into his sentence. Officially, though, the FBI ruled him out. His description didn't match the sketches, and evidence placed him in Las Vegas with his family at the time of the hijacking. The other major suspect was Robert Rackstraw, another Vietnam veteran with a record of fraud and explosives charges. A television producer spent years building a case against him, even producing a documentary arguing he was Cooper. The FBI investigated him in the 1970s but dropped him from the suspect list in 1979 for lack of evidence. Rackstraw denied it for the rest of his life and passed away in 2019. And that's where the trail goes cold. To this day, nobody knows who D.B. Cooper really was, whether he survived that jump into the storm or where, if anywhere, he ended up. It remains the only unsolved commercial hijacking in American aviation history, and one of the FBI's most famous open files, even after the case was officially closed back in 2016. So here's the question for you. Do you think D.B. Cooper actually survived that jump? Or did the mountains, the storm, and that freezing river finally catch up with him? Drop your theory in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think really happened that night.